in the Cape Conference, how it's interpreted in other areas. I'm going to give you an example. In some organizations or some churches, if I may say, if a girl is pregnant, some churches would say it's a straight removal from membership. And some churches would say, no, it's not removal from membership. You must be censured. Now, if you are a new church, you have not been there before, and this happens to you, before you could take that decision, it's important for you, or for your leadership at least, to inquire as to what's happening in the churches around, churches in your district. Are they understanding this part of policy the same way as you do? Because if there is precedence within the district, it causes a challenge within that particular church. Hence, it's important that we move together in interpreting policy as a unit, not as individual churches. Right, the rule of inference. In the law of evidence, inference is defined as a fact reasonably implied from another fact. Now here, this rule informs policy interpreters that whatever is inferred to by their policies, although not expressly stated, is however equally binding. For instance, you will never get a verse in the Bible that says, don't smoke. But there is a lot of inference that we can draw from scriptures about smoking as something bad, which we're not supposed to do. Therefore, there are quite a number of those that we actually use inference instead of using directly what it says there and says, no, it means this, but this is what we draw from what is being said here. Therefore, we also need to understand that in certain policies, you would be able to actually pick up inferences that are made instead of something direct. And those inferences are actually equally binding. Then there's rule of proportionality. Proportionality is required and expected between punishment and offense. It is a violation of this rule to impose a penalty that is disproportionate in severity to the misconduct that it is intended to cure. That's why if you are reading the church manual is actually giving three options for discipline. It says you can forgive someone, that's part of discipline. It says you can censure someone, and it says you can remove someone from membership. Therefore, it depends on what an individual has done, and the penalty should be proportionate with the misconduct. That's what policies are helping us to clean and do. Then I'm going to talk about the process of amending the church manual, because the church manual is our basic policy in the local church, apart from the policy directives that we make in our boards and in our business meetings. But this one is the basic. Now, what happens is, remember, if you are reading the first pages of the church manual expresses the church's understanding of Christian life and church governance and discipline based on biblical principles and the authority of duly assembled general conference sessions. Now, this is important. It is an expression of our understanding as Adventists. And that expression you are going to see throughout the church manual. All right. Therefore, the church manual is divided into two major sections. You have the mandatory sections and you have the notes, which are called advisory sections. With the mandatory sections, it takes 5 years to amend that kind of a classification of the division. Let's suppose that there is we want to amend the policy to include women deaconesses in ordination. let's say that's what we wanted to amend. And we feel that in this church, it appears to be discriminatory. And as Mamelodi Central Church, we are unhappy with that. What happens then is we bring this to the attention of the board. Then the board would take a decision that we would like the higher structures to look into this, and this is our challenge about the provision in the policy currently. Then that is going to be taken to the business meeting. Then the business meeting takes it to the conference executive committee. Then the conference executive committee will take it to the union. The union executive committee will take it to the division executive committee. Then the division executive committee will take it to the church manual subcommittee, which is preparing for the next session. Then they will look into that and see and say, no, this church is right. We therefore need to correct this. And then they would then formulate a proposal to the GC session that would include what Mamelodi Central was complaining about or wanted to be amended. Then it's going to be taken to the floor. Then at the floor of the general conference session, it's going to be voted up or down. If it's voted up, then you're going to see an amendment in the church manual. If it's voted down, there will be no amendment. Now, this is what is killing us in Africa, by the way. In Africa, when the church manual comes, to us, it's the law of the Medes and Persians. We don't scrutinize the church manual and look at all the sections and say this section is not structured properly. In this section, there is something that is missing. This section can be viewed as discriminatory or whatever. You look at the church manual, and then once you see those things, you bring them to the attention of the leadership of the local church to say, hey, let's look at this section in the church manual, and let's look at that section. Now, once we do that, we begin to participate in policy development, policy review, and policy amendment. Now, our problem is that we don't do that. And as such, when we send people to the general conference session, we want them to stand up and say, in the Cape Conference, we have a problem with this policy. Now, once that person stands up and says that, they will say, point of order, Chairperson, that is not on our agenda. Because everything that is brought there, it's brought there via the official structures of the church. At the GC, you can't introduce any item which is not on the agenda. And that's where most of us are missing the mark. That's why most amendments of the church manual are from the North American division, because they study it and they see what is working for them and what is not working. We from our side are not doing that. We are just consumers of what other people are thinking and other people are doing. Then we have the advisory sections. The advisory sections are different from the mandatory sections in the church manual. The advisory sections, they can be approved. The changes that we make can be approved by the annual council. In other words, they don't have to wait for 5 years. If those amendments make sense, they can be approved and they can be applied immediately after the approval. Therefore, that's how we do policy amendments. Now, if you had a policy as a local church, if there is an amendment that we need to look at, then we bring it to the board and say, we took this position in 1920, but circumstances have changed now, and we would like to have this reviewed or amended, and we propose the amendments. Same as the working policy. Working policy, when they discover that there is a need for a particular change or for amendments, they are done in the executive committees. They don't have to wait for sessions, because policy is not necessarily voted at session, even though some decisions at session have policy directives. And those policy directives are supposed to be included in the working policy of that particular institution. I think I need to now allow time for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Sekhai, Prof, for a very powerful and important presentation you've given us. Thank you so much, Prof. Gwala. We're learning every day. We're learning new things. Thank you for guiding us and enlightening us, especially as young people. For now, we're open for questions. Anyone who wants to ask a question, they can raise their hand, and I'm going to recognize them. And anyone who also has a question, like in other platforms, they can write them down on our group chat. I apologize for the mistake I've made. It's Prof. Gwala. Anyone who has questions? Okay, today it seems as if we don't have questions. What I've learned is that policies can be amended. And one of the basic things about policies is that they should always be clear and everyone must be able to understand policies.
There is a question.
Okay, there's a hand.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I talk?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
My concern question is on that amendment. Is that from that local church who pick up something on the they want to amend something on the manual. Now the you take that to the conference and proceed to the union, to the division, up to the general conference. Now, what is it? What are they doing on these levels? Are they discussing this? Then whether they will agree with that particular church on that particular consent? What are they doing in these levels on a union or on a division? Is it necessary that whatever that we have discussed in the local church, then where we see there should be changes that must be done here, then they discuss it so that if they don't see any sense, they take it back to us, or they just look at it and then and take it further to the higher level. What are they doing? Are they reading it so that if there's no need to be taken to the general conference, they will just respond on them? No. You are missing a point somewhere, you local church, on this. You don't have to amend anything yet. This is perfect. Are you? I don't know whether they are getting my question.
Yes, I'm getting your question.
Okay, I'm for this. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Remember, the leadership is the custodian of the policy. And therefore, if I pick up in the local church as a member that there is a challenge with a policy, then what happens is I take it to my leaders in the local church. And if they also see that there is a challenge in that policy, we take it to the board. And then we present our challenge. And if the board sees what we see, then the board will escalate the matter to the business meeting. The business meeting will also satisfy itself that there is a problem. It's not just me just querying it. Then if the business meeting has satisfied itself, then we take it to the conference. The conference needs to satisfy itself because they will be asked by the union, why didn't you answer the church? Because this thing is simple, you know it. Therefore, they need to satisfy themselves. And then if there's a need that it must be taken up, it will. And then each level needs to satisfy itself that there is really a need for this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Venice. I get you.
Thanks a lot.
I think we still do have another hand. It's Elder Shebum Taung.
Thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. Thank you, Pastor, for the presentation. I just want to check. You mentioned that sometimes when delegates are at the general conference and they are raising issues, maybe on policy amendments, but only to find that that's not part of the agenda. So what is the right time with these amendments to deal with them and make sure that they form part of the general conference session? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, my brother. Remember, I said it takes 5 years for the amendment of your obligatory sections of the church manual. And therefore, you have year 1, you have year 2, you have year 3, you have year 4, where you can do that so that it reaches that committee. And if it has not reached that committee, it's not going to be part of the agenda. And in the GC, they only deal with what is in the agenda. If it's not in the agenda, it's not going to be entertained.
Thank you so much. We have a question from our Facebook page. It's from Happiness Relations. Okay, thank you for information. The problem we've been taught that the church manual must not be questioned. I think this is a comment from Happiness.
Let me comment on that comment. Currently, we actually, by as early as 2019, we had received proposed amendments to the Constitution. In other words, that committee has compiled all the issues that are going to be dealt with. Therefore, what happens is, as a local church, you are supposed to look at those proposals, because when they are sent out for comments. And if it's, for instance, the proposals that are coming now, they are beefing up the youth ministries department, and they are adding a new or revamping a department which was a disability department. It's now possibilities department that is being beefed up. And you'll pick up that there are quite a number of other small things that have been picked up. Now, the other one is a nominating committee. Now, in the proposal, we will have a standing nominating committee as opposed to nominating in the church board when the nominating committee has been disbanded. Now, those are things that are being proposed now by the churches and the areas that have forwarded their concerns to the church manual committee. Therefore, from our side, we are always consumers. I pity us. We are consumers. We are not proactive in helping the African church.
Thank you so much, Pastor Kwala, for explaining that, because I also, like in most cases, I used to wonder that can't we have an input or put our thoughts as well? Because some of the information that we're given, we cannot necessarily relate to them. But now you've taught us that we can actually amend and go propose certain thoughts that we have so that we all find relatability. I think we no longer have questions now, and our chat is also empty. What we're going to do now is that we're going to close. But before we close, tomorrow's topic is, it says the role of deaconate in the governance system. So tomorrow, Pastor Kwala is going to be explaining that. And I also again invite our members to please come join us again tomorrow here on our Zoom meeting, also on our Facebook and also on our YouTube channel. We're gonna ask Mama Mkhele to kindly close for us in prayer. Mama Mkhele, can you kindly close for us in prayer? Okay, I think she is not here. I will ask Elder Bloom to kindly please close for us in prayer.
Right, so go godimo re o leboga ka tšhono re neileng yona re leboga le moruti wa rona o iphileng nako ya gore a tlhatlhe dilo tsa molao wa kereke gago a re tsotlhe tse re di utlwileng di tsene mo ditlhaloganyong tsa rona re di dire gore wena leina la gago lo bakwe nna le rona botlhe o gomotse dipelo tse di robegileng tsa batho ba ba bobolang le ba ba silweng ke ba 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 ratang re go lebogile nna le rona ga re tlo robala o re ne ditero tse dintle o re itshwarele dibe tsa rona o re rute go tshwarela ba ba melato le rona ka Kriste Jesu re a rapela amen.
Amen.